Now we're at the point of building the mounts for the bumper. You can see the C-clamp right here with this piece of wood. What it is I have a straight bar, and this, when it's on here, where the straight bar goes all the way down to right there, it's absolutely flat. With a bar, which connects to this, front frame rail, when it goes like this, the whole thing tips down, and it looks like garbage. What do I want to do? Well, I have a thing is, we have to make a mount that'll bring this up, albeit it's only maybe 2 millimeters, maybe, but we're going to use this mount to direct air. We need to get air where it needs to go. And it's like anything in a car reel or anything like in a rally field, especially, I learned this mainly with the Ford Cosworths, is that they're really big on heat shields and directing air and where it goes and everything. And ever since learning that, it's just like, oh, geez, I never really realized it, but now I do. Now, we have a couple priorities. We have to have air going into the engine bay. We have the air to cool the intercooler, the radiator, and we also need air to cool the brakes because we have a big frontal area here, and when it's all blocked off, especially with all these plates that I'm going to have in here in the final iteration, there's got to be no air going through the wheel well, so we need to put the air next to the brake caliper so it'll pull the air through the caliper and out through the wheels, because on the outside of a wheel is a low air pressure system, and I'll go through all that when I do the brakes on the car, but that's beside the point. Let's get on to making a mount for this and making a brake duct, and I'll show you roughly what I'm going to do, or show you what I'm going to do, but my theory behind where it's going to go. That's pretty much it. So, hey, let me get onto it. Let me show you what I got, and I'm just going to start piecing this thing together. Before we start doing the ducts, the ducting and the mounts, let me show you this. I'm going to take this. This is a contour gauge. This right here is the contour of this fender. If we take this contour gauge, turn it around, this should be exact contour of that like that fender over there. If we put it right here, take a look at the gap that we have right here. This is the difference. Because this is the difference, having the bumper fit and not fit, and this thing has to be more like that. But I have not measured the top part either this way, but I expect the same thing. Now that that's out of the way, let's take a look at what we're doing. This right here is the main mount for the bumper. This is flat. It's pretty much right there. And this was the trunk mount from the 4000 that I just tacked in just to fit the bumper at that height. Well, what we got to do is bring this out here. Also, take a look at this. This right here is the mount for the American bumpers. They reinforce, this is all for 5 miles per hour, for crash protection. Now what we got to do is we're going to use this channel to channel the air to the brake calipers. This is the big thing. We have to block up all the other holes inside there, but that's minor. And in order to get the air here, because this does nothing, the air sits there and just pulls around like an eddy. If you're ever a kayaker, you'll know what an eddy is. It just floats around here. So if we can direct the air and force feed it into this rail and have it come out where we want it to, down by the brake calipers or in back of the brake calipers, that'll allow enough air to get sucked through the brakes and actually cool the brakes. Now, we have to, in order to make this mount here, we have to see these bolts where I put in? I have to reverse it and put the nuts here and weld them to here, because we're not going to be able to get the bolts in after we have this on. We might be able to, but it's going to be a royal pain. And I want it just to be, one bolt, 13 millimeter wrench, takes the entire thing off, or probably 13 and a 10, because I'm going to have capture nuts up here for that, because we're going to direct the air all the way into this tube. That's the main thing. And also with this right here, we do not need this, We're going to be building a lip up. This is just a piece of trim. So I'm going to cut this off first, and then we're going to build up and make our mounts off of that. Well, my crappy brake duct out of just pieces I had lying around, it's pretty much done. I just have to, adjust it a little bit here and there, but I want to get the bottom ducts on next, and I think I have to put that on the lift. So let's grab this thing and throw it on the lift, lift it up so we can get the bottom part of the brake ducts and the rest of this stuff finished up. The bumper is pretty much in its, as in height-wise, position it's going to be in. I still have to trim up inside here of this combobulated mess that I made, but when I trim it all up and weld it all together, it should look pretty decent. And it'll do the job we're going to do. And at the end of the, probably at the end of the video, I'm going to cut the ducts for the brakes, and I'll show you the whole rigmarole with that. But after I trim this, put this in, I have to make a bar that goes across here, because with the intercooler flopping around like that, I just want to lock it in, but we also need to make sure we can pull it straight out too. So let's let me trim this up, get the bumper fully fit and bolt it in, and we will get the bottom plate done. Plus the ducts over here too. Not bad. This is exposed on the original Sport Quattro just like this. I've been looking at pictures. I'm happy with this. This is almost dead nuts level as much as you can. And down here, this is a little upwards, and this is pretty much level. I'd much rather have this a little up so you can't see that. And I want to make sure this is completely on, like that. That way, we're all set here. Let me go over and try and match up the other side. We can't really do the fender yet over there, but we'll match everything up to right here. The bottom is going to have to be cut and brought in, but I want to get the bottom bar for the intercooler done first before I do that, because we have scoops and ducts and all this other stuff. So let me go over there and set that thing up. The right side, I just have to bring this tab over here fell off, but just have to bring it up just a hair. It looks like, right there, but this is going to be the main problem. I already resigned myself. I got to cut this out, or cut this right here with a die grinder and bring it in. But first, let me do the bottom bar so I can get the bottom part of the bumper, affixed to the chassis, and that way it's not going to go anywhere. Let me show you what I'm going to use for that. Remember how I say the gift that keeps on giving? Well, we got the rest of the Eurovan seat. Let's see how we can chop it up. What I'm looking at is this bar right here, and these ends right there. I think we might have something cool. I don't know, but let me get out the cutter. I'm going to cut this tube off, and let's see how we can fit it to underneath the intercooler. If we take this and put it at the end of this right here, it goes to the end of that one right there also. So all we need to do is to take this piece, cut it down, and then we can force it up inside there and set the height. Just so it's right on the intercooler, or pretty much right on the intercooler. And then we can start building our tabs off of this. Well, here's the depth that I'm going to set, right at the bottom. And the reason why is, when I take those bolts out, with these things set up, I need to pull this thing out about 1 inch in order to get the hoses off without having to worry. So I got to trim all this up. That's no problem because it's going to be trimmed to this side. Let me grind this down and put this bar in, and then we can make the tabs for the bottom of the intercooler. So we can just unbolt this, 2 up there, and it'll pull straight out. And you won't have any problems. Well, maybe. Here's a mount I grabbed out of the scrap bin. Probably came off a Toyota, don't know. But I think it's going to work 'cause it's really thick. Well, the intercoil support bar is in. It is sitting down, but it's not sitting below the motor, so we're pretty good there. Next thing is I want to start, I'm going to put a bracket off of this bar right here to lock this in. This is kind of one of the things I want to do. Well, actually I'll put it right off of this side right here. Just so I can drill a hole up inside and keep this stationary, you know, and it'll all be, you know, this thing will not move. After that, we got to start putting in the ducts so I can get this air channeled over to the radiator. That's a big thing. Then we'll go over there and do the same thing, but channel the air to the motor. Easy. Now we have to affix the lower part of the bumper to the chassis. Well, we're not affixing it, we're making a mount so it doesn't attach. What are these? These are the same things we use for the capture nut. All it is just a piece of steel with a capture nut. The thing is, I'm just, you know what? I grabbed this. This was off of the crossbars for the between the A-pillars on the Corrado Mark IIIs, putting the support in. It's just going to go right there. This just, all this is just so I don't have to make one and put a nut in there and weld it in the back. I'm just being lazy. But this will go right here. I'm going to drill a hole. That way I'm going to set it all up like that, clean this all off and weld it right to it. I lucked out. This thing broke right here where it'll weld right onto this. So, you know, better to be lucky than good. But let's clean this off and I'll drill a hole, attach it, make sure everything is set, then weld it. It's about the only way I can think about, you know, making it really look good. Plus, with this bend in there, almost looks factory. That's nice and tough. I might have to put one here, but I don't think so. When this is all panel bonded to that bumper, this whole mount, when all this stuff is all welded up, it ought to be a pretty secure item. Let's try and fix this right here. I'm going to try and pull it in by cutting it with the zip with the whiz wheel and see if we can do something like that. Oh, give it a shot. All right, now that this is pretty much set, I got a little bit of a gap down here, but overall, it's pretty decent. Now let's channel more of the air. Let's do the final ducting for the front to where everything is going to go. So let me raise it back up and I'll show you what I'm going to do. Here is the section right here. Here's the intercooler. You want to keep all the air hitting the intercooler. This section from here to here, we want to direct over to the engine. Let's go underneath the car and I'll show you what I mean. Here is the vent on the side. Here is where it's going to, come through. This air is going to go straight through and actually loop around here, but for the most part, when this is all, right here, it'll just wash out is what it will. So what we want to do is take this air just from this duct and convert it and wrap it in so it blows over here on the engine. This is, that's a big thing. And also probably going to cool it up, but what happens is when it blows over here, it cools this side of the engine block, it cools where the turbo and manifolds are. Also, it cools the oil filter, believe it or not, a little bit of an oil cooler effect. That's kind of what we need. Now, that might be minor on that, but if it gives me, a 1/10% for free, I will gladly take it. Let me show you what I'm going to use to actually direct this air, and I think it's kind of funny, but it's another reason why you don't throw shit away. All right, take a look at this. You remember this? This was the inner wheel well from the rear of the car that I chopped out and just reused that part of the Passat trunk lid. This is the reason why you don't throw a lot of stuff away. Check out how this is pretty much going to fit. It's pretty cool. So we're going to take this. Here's how it's going to fit. We got a natural curve here. We're going to put it in here and we're going to stop right around, roughly around here. We can't block the turbocharger from when we bring the engine down. So everything has to be able to come down but still direct the flow of the air. It's not going to be that big, and the only other thing is we're going to have a small little plate underneath here and on top here to make sure you can channel the air. And that's pretty minor, but we can cut most of it up this way. So let me go cut this, and so we can actually get it to work with the front bumper. Okay, we're using this flap right here as part of the duct. I just want one tack right there, very small, because I got to cut this thing off after I do it because we have to fill in the holes for the brake duct right here, and we have to weld this all into here. That's a big thing. And stiffen it all up and make sure it's all reinforced. Pretty much. Once that's aside, so that's one really small tack right there just to hold it in place. Then we can weld everything else, but we need to use this, get it in a safe place or its final position. Then we can figure out where the other small plates are going to be. Here we are at the front, first piece. We got to stop the air from going down and up, pretty much. I'm just going to take pieces out of the pile and we're just going to put them up and see what they look like. It's a crapshoot, but let's see what we can make up. Looks like we can make it look cool. What I did was I drew a line and I tried to make this thing pretty, it's a little tall right here, but trying to make it as like, if this is 13 millimeters, I want to keep it 13 millimeters all the way across, half inch, That's kind of what, so I don't have any restrictions now. I can just slide it over and start conforming to the corners. Yeah, right there. It's good enough. We can trim the outer sides. This is good enough to get us started. So let me just tack this. I have to tack it in through here, but I'll tack it in through here because we got clean metal right there. It'll come up close to there. We'll tack that, then we can build on the bottom. Well, I just took on the anvil, and this was the other part of the inner fender well. I just tapped this down relatively flat. And what I plan on doing is doing like this, like, well, actually like that, tapping more of it down. But I think I'm gonna put a divider right here, just so it looks cool. All right, let me get my shit on and let me cut this up so I can grind this out too and tack it in just to see, you know, or just to have it stationary. So, all right, let me do that. So we don't get too far ahead of ourselves. I'm gonna basically start trimming up and doing all the brake ducts and making final fits, so I can just trim everything out. So I can pull the bumper, I'll pull the bumper support out, and weld the nuts in behind that so that it'll come in and out. And also that way I can do the ducts for the radiator down here and for the cooling on the engine block and turbo and all that stuff. So let me grab the die grinder, I mean the whiz wheel, and I'll start trimming this stuff all up and making it work. Well, I gotta do the other side, and now we can take it off, trim up everything on the bench, weld it, and stick it back on and make sure it works. Well, let's pull this thing off and finish welding it on the bench and trimming it all up. Well, we have the ducting in. I pulled the ducts off. I got to go the lower ducts, one for directing the air onto the motor, the other one directing the air to the radiator. I'm going to put those on the bench, weld them, and then reinstall them. Pretty much, you know, it's pretty easy. Other than that, we have, see this gap right here? We also have to stop the air. If the air is coming in here, it's going to be blocked a lot by the headlight, but if we can channel all air into the engine bay, the better it is. And plus, we're not going to, you know, with this hole, when we have the aligner, the fender aligner inside there, that is going to be steel, that way it doesn't pressurize that liner or pressurize the inside of that. It's just a small thing. And if I can push all the air heading towards the turbocharger to get more air towards the turbocharger, let's just say I gain 0.5%. 0.5% is better than none, you know. And this is So what am I going to use? Well, this right here is part of the trunk lid from the Passat, the B3 Passat that we use for the B support in between the B pillars and the speakers and lights and stuff like that. Also, I just like it because of these curves, and I think it's going to go in there and just fit rather nicely. You know, we'll match it right up, match it up to the fender, you know, and that way it'll push all the air in and it won't pressurize the internal part of the fender. At least that's my theory. Well, you know, let's just pull this off, pull the fenders off, and let's see what happens. This is tacked in. Let's go over and do the other side, then I'll show you how we're going to finish all this up. All right, the next step is we have to set the hood height exactly, which means we have to use the hinges. So we're testing out to see if these hinges work, because who knows, we might have to move these back, forward. The way the quality of most of these panels is, we might have to adjust it somewhere here and there. It doesn't really matter. I gotta pull the intercooler up because we know the intercooler is all set, no problem, and we got tons of room so we can do whatever we want with this because we're gonna trim this all off. After I put the hinges in, I'm gonna make sure they unlatch and latch. Then I got to put, this is the crossbar right here. We have to figure out where it's going to go and how it's going to work. Yeah, it's not, no, it's pretty easy. But let me first yank the intercooler. I'll show you how fast that is, and because I also have to redo the mounts at the bottom of the intercooler. I forgot to do something. Minor stuff. But let me, I'm just going to just pull it right out. Next thing in, we have to put the hood pins in. Main thing, I screw it all down like this. I put it in by hand, use this. This is a locking nut, locks it to it. We do have play. We have some play around, but we're going to try and do it in the middle so we have the most amount of dispersion around for the fiberglass to hold together. When the air gets underneath it, to try and force the hood up. And we're going to try and keep it absolutely straight up and down so there's no abnormal forces on either side of the hood pin. That way it won't, I try and force a crack or something like that. That's the only thing. I'm just trying to equalize everything, get the best chance of this thing not breaking on us. Well, let's give it a shot. This is all the way over, so I have to push it like that. This is where it's going to have to be. There, that's good. And let's look at the other side. It goes right in. Right there. Here's a closer look at what's going on. Right here is the latch mechanism. When this pulls forward, this lifts up and releases the hood, see? Like that. It releases the hood. So what we need to do is keep this all intact and weld this to the chassis rail right here. Now, we can turn this in. It'll increase the tension a little bit, but it shouldn't be that much, which I'm going to just turn this in, then I'm going to box in and have it all squared away like that. I think that'll probably be the best. Not sure, but you know, as long as we have enough length right here, so when this pulls all the way down, this will not obstruct with it, I think we're good. Let's clean this up and tack it in. All right, this is as low as I can get the hood. I would have to cut out and see how I cut this over here. It's moving this way, so I have to force it this way. So when I weld this all back in, this thing should be stable where it will not come off. Same thing with the other side. It's a little bit loose as in play this way because this is loose because I cut that to put this in over here. Not a problem, but this is as low down as we can get it. Now let's reset the fenders to the hood because this is actually up a little bit more than what I originally set the fenders at. So yeah, it is what it is. Let's reset all the fenders. We'll reset the front fenders again, and then we can finish up doing all this work and getting this front end put together.